The Joe Rogan Experience.
So is the reluctance that people have to allow, like, the resistance against this Reagan film, do you think it's a resistance about conservatism in general, or is it the idea that you're going to change people's perceptions about history? Because there's a lot of people, again, that have this very peripheral, low information view of who Reagan was. And so they want to have this negative spin on Reagan in history because he's a conservative.
I think, Reagan was a great president, and I think it gets perceived and compared to Trump, because there are comparisons to Trump and the things that if you get down to policy, there's a really good comparison to Trump, and maybe they see this as influencing an election by that comparison or whatever. But it's a free society here. It's about ideas we're able to express, and we're able to make up your own mind about it rather than deciding for people about what it was. And the Reagan movie it's not about ideology at all. I mean, Reagan was a Democrat for 40 years until the last 40 years of his life, or 35, he was a Republican. And it's about the Cold War and about his fight against communism. And, we won the Cold War under Reagan. And it was before that, appeasement had been practiced in this country. Jimmy Carter, God bless him, he did really well with the Egyptians and Israel in making peace in the Middle East. It was great about that. He wasn't so great with the Iran hostage thing. You remember the foiled, disastrous rescue attempt. Back then it seemed like everything failed. And but with the Soviets, he'd appeased it, like, gave away the B-1 bomber. He gave away a lot of things without getting anything in return from the Soviets as far as reducing the threat of war. And they took that, of course, as weakness and started to really build up their military and their missile strength to an unprecedented level. Americans were... There's a lot about Americans that it's kind of sweet in a way, and that the kumbaya thing. Why can't we be friends and just that humanity? That's the good-hearted, fantastic thing about America, but that's not the way the world works. We're all a product of the way that we grew up. We've basically grown up in this country with relative safety, and we have. A nation that has had laws that, form of law, and you do things the right way and the wrong way, or what you consider. But, can you imagine what it was like for Saddam to grow up in Iraq, or Xi, or Putin, and the way they grew up? That makes them the way they are, and the Russian people had grown up the same way. So you start to get a sense of how the rest of the world doesn't operate on the same rules that we are.
Right.
They actually have a more realistic way of looking at things, the way man has actually been from the tribal stage on. You got the water, and we want the water.
Right.
And we don't want to share it. We want it ours.
Right.
Because you'll piss in it, and it'll destroy it. So we want it for ourselves. But Reagan came along, and he had the idea to bankrupt them, to make them spend. Star Wars, he came out with Star Wars. He really got that name from the movie, the whole Star Wars thing, which is now the Patriot defense system over in Israel. It didn't exist at that time. It was decades away from it. But he made the Russians think at least 10% that it might be real. Reagan even offered to share it with them, in exchange for let's take our missiles down to zero. And I got mad at him in Iceland when I thought he was acting like an old codger because they came up and said, we're offering you this, half the missiles or this or that. And he said no. Because they wanted us to get rid of Star Wars, which didn't exist. And he said, well, you have to get rid of Star Wars. And if we'd done that, the Soviets would have just gone on their merry way and been doing what they would have had been doing. But Reagan said no. And the Soviet Union came toppling down, but it was great progress that he made. And it took a Cold Warrior, hard-assed Cold Warrior, to be able to negotiate with them. And that's what we don't have today.
Right. Yeah. Did you, how much research did you have to do on Reagan before you did this film? Did you do a deep dive?
Yeah. Well, for one thing, I lived through it. I remember every single thing because even back then I was a big news wonk, even though I had 3 channels, three news channels, and also when I was offered the part, he was my favorite president. Okay, and I didn't say yes, but I didn't say no. He's like Muhammad Ali. He's known, all over the world. People know what he looks like, sounds like, and the like. And I didn't want to do an impersonation like Saturday Night Live, because when I play a real person, I want to play it from their point of view. And sometimes that means warts and all. What are not just like what you did, but what are your insecurities? What do you really care about? How'd you feel when you got jilted? Or whatever that make us up who we are in the end. Yeah, and it took me a long time to say yes, but I got invited to the Reagan Ranch, which was the Western White House back then. And when Reagan died, some friends bought it and left it exactly as it is. He and Nancy's clothes are in the closet.
Whoa.
Yeah. You expect them to come back. They didn't change a thing. And the only guy that was up there was John Bartlett, who was Reagan's Secret Service guy he rode horses with every day. So, but it go up 5 miles of the worst road in California and get to the top of that mountain, come through the gate, and I could feel him. I could just feel him in every square inch of that place, and I could feel he was a humble guy. His library, with every book, is at a big bookcase, with every book going back to like 9 years old. The printer of Udell is there, and they had a king-size bed, but it was 2 single beds zip tied together.
Huh.
The house is 1,100 square feet, maybe 2 rooms of this, and very simple. And this is the Western White House. All the appliances are GE, because he was a spokesman for GE back then, and he bought that place after he was governor. But either he didn't have much money or he was really cheap. But
or he wanted to live simple.
Yeah, he knew how to live simply. It was this person, and I felt him. And then in the research, he was an actor, and he had we both have sunny dispositions too, I think, naturally. But I don't think, one of the things about Reagan is I don't think he ever got to where he wanted to get as an actor. I think was one of the disappointments for him. And, his career was going towards the end when he married Jane Wyman, who won an Academy Award like the next year. And I think his self-esteem was actually pretty low at that point because he was looking for a purpose in his life that he never found until he got he ran for and was elected vice president of the Screen Actors Guild and then president of the Screen Actors Guild. And that's not a job that anybody, as an actor, you aspire to be, right?
Right.
But it's like when God shuts a door, he opens a window somewhere. And this was his entry into politics. And, that's where that road started. Mm. And at the time that he was that he was president. The Soviet Union, they found the files after they fell, by the way, in the Soviet Union. They were trying to infiltrate the media, of course, into movies and through the unions for control of that. And that was his in earnest. I mean, there were fistfights in union halls over it that he was involved in, and he did a lot of great. The reason we actors have great health insurance is because of Ronald Reagan. By the way,
really,
yeah,
no kidding.
He was. In fact, that happened. That happened in, I think it was 60 or 61, and he wasn't even president of the Screen Actors Guild then. He had been, I think, like 6 years later, his term had run out. But he came back and got that rammed through because that was the right thing to do. That was when he was a Democrat.
Wow.
Yeah. He got us, I mean, we have the best health insurance of any union I can think of. And that was because of Ronald Reagan.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Do you think that expressing your conservative viewpoints and doing this film on Reagan, do you think this ultimately has the potential to hurt your career?
I don't care anymore. There was there was time that I was kind of concerned to kind of like speak my mind or speak up, but in the last couple of years, that I feel it's really important that we do, all of us, speak up. In this election, everybody's got to choose a side, and we have to, in order to have this exchange of ideas and dialogue, we have to speak up. And so, like I said, they when I was doing Reagan, there was a story that came out that I was taking money from the CDC, $400,000, the Trump administration had arranged so I could do a commercial on for the vaccine that was coming out, but none of which was true. But, it's like my son even called me like freaking out, because it was just like I was going to get canceled over this stuff because I was taking, I guess, taxpayer money from the CDC, making money off this. But none of it was true.
And where did it come from? Did they find the source?
I really have no idea. It's something that circulated in social media. So I really don't know. But that, and I remember when when COVID first started, I think it was Politico that I did a phone conversation with, because I was involved with this podcast company that we were promoting, and it was, just happened to be at COVID, and the guy asked me what I thought about the way Trump was handling the COVID, and I said, well, at least he's there every day. He's there every day trying to do something, and I think when it comes to things like this, we need to get behind our president as a whole, to come together to fight this thing, just like Franklin Roosevelt getting behind, during World War, at the start of World War II, in order to. Well, anyway, that became that I was a, right-wing Trumpster, and supposedly in danger of getting canceled over that, and then I also gave a speech about Reagan to the group in Florida after we'd made the movie, and I think there were two people that were January 6th. People just happened to be there, and by association, that was going to be, my agents called me like freaking out over that. They were like it was going to be canceled. They're just like being told to, just be quiet and let things go by, and no, I just can't. I'm not a very good rule follower to begin with, It's just it's one of those faults I've had, but
good for you.
Yeah, but
I think that kind of makes you a good actor too.
Well, it's
a rebellious nature.
Yeah, well, maybe that's debatable, but there's a lot of rebellious people I know who are really bad actors. But but
touche. Yeah, there's a lot of that.